40 years of blood, sweat, and tears, gone in 3 days. My lawyer just walked out. My legacy, stolen by a lie.
The judge reached for the gavel. I had 60 seconds left before I lost everything I ever built. And then, the doors opened. The girl I saved from the freezing streets 17 years ago had just walked in.
She didn't just bring a defense, she brought evidence. A font that didn't exist, and system logs that proved a massive conspiracy.
In 4 minutes, she destroyed their lies. She walked into the one courtroom where she could save the man who saved her.
The heavy mahogany doors of the courtroom felt more like the gates of a tomb to Solomon Kingston. At 65, this widower and millionaire had spent 40 relentless years building an empire from absolutely nothing. Yet here he was, watching his entire life's work evaporate in a matter of days. Before we dive into exactly how an impossible miracle walked through those doors with 60 seconds left on the clock, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story of incredible justice. Solomon's story wasn't born in a boardroom. It was forged in the harsh realities of the city streets. After losing his wife early in his career, he threw himself into his work, constructing a real estate and logistics empire that employed thousands. But his greatest achievement had nothing to do with contracts or concrete. 17 years ago, on a bitterly cold November night, Solomon was leaving a job site when he saw a small figure huddled on a freezing curb. It was an 8-year-old girl named Maya. She had been abandoned, left with nothing but a torn jacket and a fierce, unbroken spirit. Solomon didn't just give her a meal, he gave her a home, adopting her and raising her as his own flesh and blood. Maya grew up with a front-row seat to Solomon's work ethic. She saw the endless nights, the sacrifices, and the unyielding integrity that defined Kingston enterprises. She also possessed an intellect that was nothing short of staggering. While other kids were playing games, Maya was reading legal thrillers and studying corporate law. She went on to graduate at the top of her law school class, armed with a brilliant mind and an unbreakable loyalty to the man who had pulled her from the freezing pavement. However, Maya had recently taken a job across the country at a prestigious firm, putting distance between her and Solomon's day-to-day operations. That distance was exactly what Marcus Vance was counting on. Vance was a notorious corporate raider, a man who built his wealth not by creating things, but by tearing them apart. Vance had identified Kingston Enterprises as his next target, but he knew Solomon would never sell. So, Vance fabricated an alternative reality. He emerged from the shadows with a contract, a dense, flawlessly executed document bearing Solomon's exact signature. The contract allegedly signed over controlling interest of the empire to Vance's holding company in the event of a specific loan default, a loan Solomon had purportedly guaranteed a decade ago. When Vance took Solomon to court to enforce the takeover, Solomon hired the most expensive, aggressive defense attorney money could buy. But the forgery was a masterpiece. Vance's team presented witnesses who lied with chilling precision. They presented digital footprints that seemed irrefutable. Over 3 agonizing days, the expensive lawyer Solomon hired was completely dismantled. The defense collapsed in front of everyone Solomon had ever employed. The credibility he had spent a lifetime building was shredded by calculated lies and fabricated certainty. On the final day of the trial, the breaking point arrived. Unable to find a loophole in the forged documents and unwilling to tarnish his own win record on a lost cause, Solomon's attorney snapped his briefcase shut. He leaned over, whispered an apology, and walked out of the courtroom. He quit. Solomon sat alone at the massive defense table, a titan reduced to a solitary, defeated man. He looked up at the judge. The magistrate adjusted his glasses, a look of grim finality on his face. He reached for his wooden gavel. There were barely 60 seconds left before the ruling that would strip Solomon of everything. Then, the heavy doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. The murmurs in the gallery died instantly. The judge paused, gavel hovering in the air. Solomon turned around, his exhausted eyes widening in disbelief. Walking down the center aisle, holding a worn leather case, was Maya. She didn't look like the little girl from the freezing curb, nor did she look like a junior associate. She looked like a force of nature. Maya approached the bench with a chilling, calm confidence. She informed the judge that she was formally substituting as lead counsel for the defense. Vance's lawyers immediately objected, laughing at the sudden arrival of this young woman. But Maya didn't even look at them. She opened her leather case, pulling out a single stack of paper and a digital tablet, effectively turning their manufactured certainty into devastating evidence. In a staggering 4-minute cross-examination, Maya called Vance's lead digital archivist to the stand. She didn't yell. She spoke with a precision that made the liars in the room sweat. First, she projected a magnified image of the forged contract signature page onto the courtroom monitors. She asked the archivist to confirm the date of the document, August 14, 2010. Then, she pulled up an affidavit from the creator of the specific typeface used in the document's headers. The font, she revealed to the dead silent room, was not commissioned and released to the public until 2013. The raiders had used a font that didn't even exist yet to print their forged contract. The color drained from Vance's face. But Maya wasn't finished. She connected her tablet to the courtroom display, pulling up a deeply buried registry of system logs that she had subpoenaed from Vance's own servers just hours prior. She highlighted a string of code, pointing out a specific directory named backdate. She walked the judge through the digital forensics, proving unequivocally that Vance's team had fabricated the digital footprint just 3 months ago, deliberately backdating the servers to match the forged physical copies. The courtroom erupted. Vance's lawyers scrambled, shouting over each other, but the damage was irreversible. The judge stared at the evidence, a look of absolute fury crossing his face as he realized he had almost been made an accessory to corporate theft. He didn't just rule in Solomon's favor, he ordered an immediate criminal investigation into Marcus Vance for perjury and fraud. Solomon sat paralyzed at the defense table. His empire was safe. His name was cleared. But as he looked up at Maya, who was packing her leather case with the same quiet dignity she had always possessed, he realized that his greatest achievement wasn't his company at all. 17 years of unconditional love and gratitude had just been delivered in a masterclass of justice. The little girl from the freezing curb had grown up to make liars nervous for a living. She had walked into the one courtroom where it mattered most, not just as a lawyer, but as a daughter saving the man who had saved her. And as they walked out of those heavy mahogany doors together, Solomon knew his legacy was in the best possible hands.